And I think kind of the first thing is responding to a race incident. What's our first response? So is take it seriously and make sure that, if somebody perceives something to be racist, that's their perception. Perception is reality for somebody. So it's really important that we take it seriously, address immediately. So that's, separate people involved. Make sure you speak to them, get their version of events, show support. So, support them. If you need to talk about this further outside of kind of getting their version of events, that you're always there to support and listen. Racial trauma doesn't always come out straight away. And that's not us saying that we have to be experts in trauma and experts in understanding what to do in a situation. But it's just being there if somebody needs to talk to, and then also support with signposting towards if there is somebody that they need to go and see, or somebody that can kind of talk to them and counsel them if they need more support after the incident, and take action. So it's making sure that everybody's aware of what action you're going to take in the initial response. So it's getting people's version of events. Are there any bystanders? So we usually split a race incident down into 3 people or 3 groups. It'll be the perpetrator or perpetrators. So that's the person that may have said or acted in a certain way, which is described to be racist. It'll be the target or victim. We use target a lot of times. So it'll be them. That could be targets. So it could be a group of people. And then it's the bystanders. So those are the people that may have overheard or seen the situation as well.
Can I just ask a quick question, Dean?
Yep.
On the previous slide, you're obviously dealing with an incident. Kieran from Llanelli Wanderers asks, this is quite pertinent because I'd imagine a lot of people would have a similar question, but if a coach is made aware but doesn't witness an incident of racist language, what would you recommend is a good way of dealing with it, particularly if it's in a junior age group with junior players?
I think it's really important. I would say if there's an official referee there, there's reported to the referee that there's been this allegation. It is very difficult to prove an allegation sometimes where it's an individual saying it against another individual. So for me, it would be stopping the game, making both coaches aware, making the referee aware, and addressing it straight away. So, maybe take a break. I would check in with the player that's been kind of targeted with that racist language or racist abuse, to check in that they're comfortable to carry on, and address it from there. If the answer is no, it's either substituting them or making a decision whether you're going to continue playing that game. And again, that comes down to coach's perception. Your players the best. If they feel like they've heard something which is racist, and they're not happy to play, I think you're more than happy to walk off the pitch if that is how you feel as a team. We always treat a race incident as a safeguarding concern, and comes with safeguarding concerns is obviously there's trauma associated with this, and emotions which will be very, very high. So again, it's as a club, what you feel is whatever you need to do. So if that is walk the team off, or whether that's substitute the individual, it's kind of down to you as a group of players. But I think it's really important that you make both coaches aware, and the referee, whether that be an official referee or whether that be one of the coaches.
What about Haley's added another level to the question, which is this is probably something that will happen quite often, potentially because training happens a lot more than matches. But what happens if it happens in a training session? There's no referee, it's one coach with a group of players. And this is an interesting question that comes off the back of this. Is when I was a teacher, people would say, should you deal with it in front of the rest of the class, or should you take the person to the side? Well, it was always best then to deal with it in front of the class, because then everyone would understand that it's not acceptable. Whereas there's a temptation, isn't there, sometimes to take the perpetrator away from the group and deal with it away from the group, but sometimes that's not as efficient a way to deal with the issue.
And I think it probably feeds on quite nicely to this slide. So it's always, I would personally, if you're stopping a training session because there's been an incident, it's not the end of the world for those players. Not that it would be in a match, but if it's, it's not a competitive game, you can stop it and you can kind of have your stance on what a racist incident is and why that behavior is wrong. I think it's really important to explain why behavior is wrong and it's not going to be accepted at the club. Avoid that shaming behavior. So, shouting, raising voices, treating them like they should be ashamed of what they said. It's hard to then get across the education of why that is so wrong and why they shouldn't be doing it. I think, people are very defensive if you start shaming them, especially in a group of individuals. If you're shaming one person, it's quite easy for them to be defensive because of everybody else. So it's avoid that shaming behavior, but explaining why it's not be tolerated and why that behavior is wrong or that language is wrong. Try and get an understanding from them. They understand that was wrong. Obtain an apology. This is key, but it's really important that the target says, yeah, I'm ready for somebody to apologize to me. It might be at that situation at that time that they don't feel like they want an apology and that's not good enough for them. It may be that a week later, on a weekend, or even later down the road, they'll be ready for that apology. And then, it's for the perpetrator to again give that apology. But also with the target, to understand and confirm with them why that behavior was wrong, that was targeted at them. But also for them to have an understanding that, this isn't going to be tolerated at the club. Reassure and offer the opportunity for them to talk about any points. Like I said earlier, it may be later down the road. Encourage a target to report any future incidents and explain how you're going to deal with that incident. I think it's really important once you've dealt with it in whatever protocol the club uses, is feeding back in of actually this is what was done. The player that has been the perpetrator or players have been issued with a ban, a fine, education, and just explain what the protocol was for that. And then for the bystander, so anybody that may overhear it, it's making sure that they know why those actions were wrong and unacceptable, but also getting their version of events. And we've seen this at quite a few different sports clubs. It might be 2 or 3 players will say, yes, they did hear this. 5 or 6 say, no, I didn't. Some saying that player, he or she definitely didn't say that. Some will say, yes, they definitely did. So making sure you can get as many statements as possible so you've got an opportunity to make an informed decision based on the balance of probability, whether it was said or not. It's not easy, and especially within clubs, it's understanding if it's a race incident between your players on your team, how can you then build that trust back up that that's a place where it won't be tolerated, but the target feels like it's a safe space for them to continue playing rugby. And that's probably a difficulty when it are internal incidents between players at the same club. And obviously the stuff with Luther demonstrates how much of an impact that had on him, that he felt like they were his friends, his peers. But then after the incident felt like he wasn't treated on the same level as what they were. So they saw him as inferior to where they were. And that's something that's quite difficult to navigate as a team. But I think making sure that, once you've spoken to the target, are they happy with what you're doing to investigate, but also to deal with the incident? Again, if it's junior as well, really important that you get parents involved. Explain the situation to perpetrators' parents, targets' parents, bystanders, again, and saying why this won't be tolerated at the club, what action's going to be taken to move forward. And again, speaking with the parents and making sure that they're happy with how the incident's been dealt with. If they're not, then it's looking at what as a club do you feel you can do or can't do. But maybe is there something you need to change within in policy or procedures at the club to deal with racist incidents or to reinforce how you treat racism within the club.